Day number 1 is in the history books here as 18 players entered and only 8 remain. Each of these players has guaranteed themselves $6,500 with the opportunity at more, with $150,000 on the line. Some had a rocky road, but in the end, some were able to prevail on the steady slopes here of South Korea. A warm welcome, ladies and gentlemen, as we get into things and break everything down. I'm James Carroll, your host here in the studio for the Intel Extreme Masters PyeongChang, and obviously, day 1 left everything to play for. Hundreds of players participated across the globe as they whittled down to just 18 players remaining here on the world stage. They're going to be representing their nations, they're looking for a championship, and they want to feel triumph here on that global stage. We are ready to begin the Intel Extreme Masters PyeongChang.
Special does not care. Special takes the series 3-0.
Stefano's tournament life is on the line here, but it really does not seem that this Protoss army is going to be stopped.
That the battle is coming, and here she goes. This attack is coming up in this location. You can see in the center left, Terran has a pretty good position, but with these great blinding clouds, those tanks are basically made useless for the time being, harpooning one of the tanks into the army, and a great victorious fight there by Scarlet. Man, just disabling some of these units as he tries to push out. GG. Bly wins this series 3-1.
That's right, day number 2 about to begin here for the Intel Extreme Masters PyeongChang, as day number 1 left everything to play for here for the tournament. Welcome to the analysis desk as we get things going. To my left-hand side, joining me to start the day off, we do have Rotterdam and we have Nathanius to kick it off. Gentlemen, day 1, very good day to start things.
Yeah, amazing games. Being able to follow the series yesterday, there were just some awesome matches. I was very happy to see my personal favorite player going through, Elazer. I love following these guys.
Yeah.
A lot of fun yesterday, but I definitely think it was a day where the favorite showed up and delivered. When you go to a tournament like this, you never know, are we going to have a lot of upsets or not? Do the upsets happen early in the tournament? Well, yesterday, I don't think we really had any upsets. I think most StarCraft experts would have predicted the players to advance. They did actually advance, which obviously means that the quarterfinals, James, are going to be pretty stacked.
Yeah, the favorites went through in glorious fashion for a lot of them. Some of them had, 1 or 2 drops in the games and things like that, but that's the kind of thing you expect in StarCraft 2. You can be able to pull out some sneaky strategies, some little cheeky things, and you can get away with it. Let's take a look at the bracket and see exactly how things went down yesterday and get you up to speed with who remains. As you can see, we started with the 18 players, 4 of which came from the North American region and had to play off in a playoff match. Playoff in a playoff match. That was a weird sentence, wasn't it? But it doesn't matter because we then get into the round of 16 and get things going. And overall, looking at those results, pretty ironed out.
Yeah, I think a couple of the big dogs that we had before this tournament, a lot of people obviously focus on our Korean players. We have Zest and SOS. They both showed up, they both delivered. And then, of course, a lot of eyes are on the Finnish hope, perhaps the biggest European representative, even though we can't sleep on Elazer, but we'll talk about him more later.
Of course.
Cyril also did what we expected him to do. And the way he did it as well, it wasn't just a trio, it was as convincing as they can be. So, I mean, that just gives me really good hopes for the tournament, because all the players that we expect a lot of, they seem to be in perfect shape.
Yeah, as you mentioned, Cyril, one of the biggest names here in the tournament.
Yeah, that's been a player to follow, right? The championship in Leipzig just almost a week ago, and he's been looking so good. He's one of those players that we've talked up so much even last year. He was one of the big contenders to take a WCS circuit title. And of course, as you mentioned, Kev, Elazer still in the hunt, is the only player other than Neeb, the American champion, to grab one of those titles last year.
Well, before we get on to a little bit more here, we can take a look at the schedule and get you up to speed with how the games are going to play out today. Yesterday, we had 5 series on the mainstream, but today we will have only 4. We're going to complete the entire round of 8 bracket to get things going today, and then tomorrow it's round of 4s and grand final. So out of the 8 players, you couldn't wish, really, on an international stage for a better lineup. It's a very, very strong lineup that we have here, Roddy.
Yeah, we've got 7 nations represented here in the quarterfinals, and we've got 2 Koreans. I mean, if you're a StarCraft fan, this is kind of what you want to see, a very international field, which obviously is what this tournament is all about. And I just love these quarterfinals. I mean, we're going to talk about them in depth, but
absolutely,
yeah, I'm just excited as a StarCraft fan.
Yeah, we get to go back to the classic matchup of which of these countries is going to go best against the Korean players that we have here, and the hope is strong. These players have been just on the up and up. I think about players like Elazer, I think about players like Cyril, and you really can't call who's going to take this tournament.
Yeah, definitely. There's a lot to play for in this bracket. Now looking at how even like the lower bracket kind of shapes out, people like Bly and Special going up against one another. Not exactly a stipulation we see all too often, but it is there.
They've actually never played against each other in a competitive environment.
There you go.
And I mean, that's one of these matchups where I think some of the diehard StarCraft fans look at this like, yeah, Bly is dangerous, Bly is good, but Special has been so solid in 2017. He started off the year very good as well in Leipzig just the other week, so that should be a pretty convincing Special victory, but I don't think it's going to be that easy for him. Obviously, it's never easy in the quarterfinals of a big international tournament. But Bly, for instance, took out Uthermal 2-0. And Bly is not your traditional Zerg player. He's somebody that truly has his own unique, distinctive style. And you can be as good as you want in the matchup. When you play against Bly, you're playing a different game.
He's got a lot of flair about him. I have to cut you off there for a moment, Nate, as we do and are ready for our first match here to get things rolling. It's going to be Elazer going up against Zest. Our first match, it's going to be Poland going up against South Korea. And for all intents and purposes, you've got a player who, in Zest, is an Intel Extreme Masters world champion going up against a WCS champion who's carved his name into the history books as Elazer just as much as Zest has.
For StarCraft fans around the world who follow the competitive circuit inside and outside of Korea, this is a matchup that you've been waiting for. You get to see one of the best European players go up against one of the best Koreans. And oftentimes that story is who can beat the Korean players in the tournaments. And usually the Koreans do take those titles, but these are the players that give hope to those who are looking to see that competitive environment continue to grow. And Elazer, he comes in, he's a confident guy. He's been playing really hot the last year.
Absolutely.
Confidence a key word there. Elazer has lots of confidence, and perhaps it's a little bit based on the history as well. In 2017, they played against each other twice. Elazer won both encounters. Last time Zest beat Elazer, we have to go all the way back to 2016. And if I look at yesterday, Zest obviously did what he had to do. He won a series 3-1 against another strong Zerg opponent in the name of Stefano. But I don't think it was rock solid. I don't think it was as good as we've ever seen Zest. To me, it felt a tiny bit shaky. And I think Elazer looked at those series and probably thought to himself, well, I'm good in this matchup. And if I look at the way Zest played here, I think I can take advantage of that. But yeah, too much confidence can be your downfall as well.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. Well, of course, Elazer, a big, strong opponent here for the man himself from South Korea. But of course, the big question is Zest best?
네, 저는 어렸을 때부터 프로게이머를 꼭 해서 성공을 해야겠다고 생각했습니다. 이제 실현시키기가 어렵잖아요, 원래 꿈이라는 게. 근데 제가 이제 잘할 수 있는 게 뭘까를 생각했을 때 프로게이머라는 게 떠올랐고, 그거를 실현시키기 위해 많은 노력을 했던 것 같아요. 제가 숙소에 들어가게 된 건 고등학교 이제 3학년 때 처음 들어가게 됐습니다.
Team houses have always been the way of pro gamers in South Korea. Almost every professional Korean player grew up in a team house. You might have somewhere from 5 to 20 professional gamers living in the same house. They'll be sleeping in bunk beds, and of course, the practice room. They'll train there each and every day against each other. All their meals will be cooked There's a maid to make sure that all the laundry is done and the house is kept clean. And most importantly, the central figure of the house, the coach.
팀에서 생활하는 장점은 서로 정보를 공유한다는 것, 같은 공간 안에서 피드백을 확실히 주고받을 수 있기 때문에 개인보다는 확실히 앞서갈 수 있겠죠.
When Zest became a StarCraft 2 pro gamer, it didn't take long for him to assert himself as one of the best. For years, he was the most fearsome player in the scene. And then, as suddenly as he had risen, he fell, and no one knows what happened.
지금 현재는 제가 거의 6, 7년을 관리를 받다가 팀을 나와가지고 혼자서 이제 프로게이머 생활을 하고 있습니다. 팀 프로게이머 생활을 했었을 당시에는 그 1년마다 계속 1티어 이상 개인 대회를 우승을 했었었는데 혼자 프로게이머를 생활하고 2017년에는 제가 1티어 개인 리그를 우승을 못했었어요. 좀 나태해졌었어가지고
혼자 생활하는 친구들이 게을러질 수밖에 없다고 생각을 해요. 왜냐면 팀 생활은 내가 하기 싫어도 정해진 스케줄대로 움직일 수밖에 없는데 아무래도 혼자 하다 보면 뭐 좀 연습할까 하다가도 그냥 좀 쉬고 싶어 그러면 안 하게 되고 게을러질 수밖에 없는 것 같아요.
원래 성적이 나름 잘 나왔었었는데 중요한 경기에서 계속 지다 보니까 좀 많이 힘들었던 것 같아요. 블리즈컨을 제가 원래 3년 연속으로 계속 갔었었는데 작년에 딱 못 가니까 항상 있었던 자리에 제가 없었던 모습을 보고 이제 더 열심히 해야겠다 생각을 했었어요.
As a pro gamer, when you go into a slump, it's going to be one of the most painful experiences of your life. You start doubting yourself. You used to win games, and now you don't. It's a devastating thing to have happen.
스스로 연습을 하는 거는 굉장히 많은 자기 관리가 필요하기 때문에 더 많이 노력을 해야 될 것 같아요.
GG, Zest is the first player to make it through for IEM. PyeongChang.
국내에서 우승한 적이 오래됐기 때문에 팬들에게 우승으로 보답하고 싶어요.
Right now is an exciting time for Zest fans. After a long period of him just not delivering over and over and over, here he is, crushing through qualifiers. He's streaming some of his games, looking fantastic. The talk in the air is that Zest is back.
많은 일반인 분들이 프로게이머라고 하면 이제 게임을 하면서 이제 편하게 돈을 번다고들 생각하시는 분들이 많더라고요. 게이머들이 보이는 것과 다르게 정말 연습도 진짜 많이 하고 많은 노력이 뒤따른다는 걸 좀 알려주고 싶어요. 프로게이머 생활을 하면서 어렵고 힘든 점도 굉장히 많았지만 우승을 했었을 때 그 기분을 잊지 못해가지고 저는 다시 태어나도 프로게이머를 꼭 할 거예요.
So the question is whether Zest is best or not can pretty much be answered with, for a long time, South Korea in StarCraft 2 has been best. I compare it myself to, traditional sports, basketball. You always, the Americans are the team to beat or whatever. For a lot of these pro gamers, Nate, South Korean players are the players to beat from all the other countries.
And they act as that beacon for everybody that's trying to learn. We see a lot of the players from outside of Korea make the journey to play in the tournaments that take place in Seoul, to practice with the best of the best. And when we think of the best, we think of players like Zest, because he has built that following for a reason. He has fans all over the world because his games are amazing to watch. he is an amazing athlete in StarCraft,
Yep.
and he is one of the most fun players to watch play this game.
And Elazer has proved he's able to take on the Koreans at things like the WCS Global Finals, which is the culmination of everybody's work in a year in StarCraft 2.
No, Elazer has definitely shined on the biggest stage already. I think 2016 was a real breakout year for Elazer. He was already lurking around in the shadows in 2015, making his way to these events, but he was just one of the many European players. 2016 was his breakthrough year. He really started to make deep runs, made it into the global finals at the end of the year, and 2017 was not bad either. He finally got that very first big international championship in Valencia, and he once again made it to the global finals at the end of the year. And while doing that throughout some of the international events, he had a couple of big victories over Korean players as well, one of them being Zest.
What kind of things do you think that someone like Elazer has to look out for when playing against someone as well documented as Zest?
I mean, I think the biggest thing that we can take away from Zest series yesterday is that he's a very solid, stable player who can make small adaptations to his strategy. If you're Elazer, you just have to bring your A game. I don't know that he's worried about Zest being a crazy cheese player. He should expect a very good, straight-up Protoss play.
I agree there with Nate, but I also think that Elazer has to be careful with not being too overconfident. And I know that sounds silly, because often when they go up against these big Korean players, people even lack confidence, but Elazer is the opposite. But sometimes that can really work against you. I think back of the global finals last year, where he was in a group stage against Hero, and he was really feeling it. He really thought he was so well prepared. He thought he had a perfect read on Hero, and in the end he got surprised twice, and it was a very short series. Like Zest is not as crazy as Hero, but Zest is incredibly good at whatever he decides to do. So, you know, don't be overconfident. Don't think you kind of know what he's going to do, because Zest is absolutely capable of surprising you.
For me, this is the closest matchup we've had so far in the tournament. So I'm going to put you guys on the spot a little bit. I would love to know how you think the outcome of this match is going to be, because for me, it's anybody's guess. I'm not sure who's going to win.
I feel like it's impossible not to favor Zest. He does come in as one of the favorites to win this tournament. Elazer has the confidence, he has the ability, but I mean, people say Zest is best for a reason.
It's very true. It doesn't just rhyme, it's also quite factual.
I agree with that statement. I really think this is the closest match we've had so far in this tournament, which obviously makes it very tough to predict. But I actually believe that Elazer can do it. He really has set himself apart from almost all the other Europeans. He's at the same level as Sero. I think coming into this tournament, you've got 2 North American stars in Special Scarlet. You've got the 2 Korean stars, but the 2 European stars were absolutely Sero and Elazer. I think Elazer has shined in this matchup in the past. I think he's a very not only confident, but also very intelligent player. I think Elazer can get the job done here in a very close series, 3-2.
Does a tournament winner come from this match? Is that the caliber of these players?
Tournament is too stacked to say that.
Right.
Yeah, the players are definitely too. The next matchup after this potentially is that could also be the 2 tournament winners.
It's great that we actually can't call it that early. In the round of 8 here with the players that we actually have available to us. So.
You've got Azawaz in the bottom side of the bracket. You've got Special that's playing the best StarCraft.
Still in it.
And Sero is still in it as well. Like the winner of this match has to go up against either Scarlet or Sero. Even that match is going to be very hard to call, so we can't get too far ahead, but this is an amazing quarterfinals. I'm really excited.
All right, well, thank you very much, gentlemen. Always great to hear from the experts here at the analysis desk. I am going to venture off to find our casters here for our next series, because we do indeed have the voice that was found because we couldn't find any of Zest's family. So we have Artosis here at the end with Mr. Johan Todd Merlo to get us going. Gentlemen, a very, very good match to start off day number 2.
Yeah, as you guys were saying, this is actually a very close one, despite the fact that Zest is kind of a more storied pro gamer than Elazer. But Elazer has been able to take series off of him in the past, and he's in great shape right now.
Yeah, and I mean, a lot of good points were brought on the desk over there. Good job, guys. One of those was we haven't seen a 3-2 yet. And now this is supposed to be a very close matchup between 2 guys at the top in a Protoss versus Zerg. Very excited for this one. I feel like it's hard to pick a favorite. You guys at the desk were a little bit torn about it too, so that's what makes it so exciting at the same time.
I mean, for me, the thing that makes it very exciting, especially not only, you know, you've got someone like Zest, who is one of the best out of South Korea, but how Elazer has performed when it comes to things like WCS Global Finals. He's able to constantly, like, shine in a position where not many people really gave him that much credit going into some of those positions.
Well, Elazer is like a funny case here. I almost feel like he plays better under more pressure. He plays better if he's against better opponents. Like, sometimes he'll lose a little bit earlier in tournaments. You'd be like, oh, I wonder what happened there. But when you put him up against someone like Zest, he will deliver his best play.
And the thing about Elazer is that he's consistently improved. Like, he's one of those guys that has been on a steady rise to the top.
Yep.
And I want to say almost like mostly off the back of his Zerg versus Protoss, at which he excels. We've seen him in the past do very well in many tournaments in the matchup. So now he gets a Protoss. Definitely doable, I think, for him.
All right, well, thank you very much, gentlemen. As we're getting to you in a moment's time. Our first game is almost ready. Our experts are either desk at on. Who is going to take here the first game of day number 2? Will it be Zest or will it be Elazer here for the Intel Extreme Masters PyeongChang? One of these players will move on to the round of 4 and bag themselves even more money here at that 150,000 prize pool.
Hello and welcome everybody to day number 2 of the Intel Extreme Masters PyeongChang 2018. We started with 18 players from all around the world representing 16 countries, and today only 8 remain. Tomorrow only 1 player will be crowned champion, and he'll be taking home $50,000. There's a lot of great StarCraft 2 action ahead of us. You are watching the Intel Extreme Masters.
Here we go, Todd. It is going to be Elazer going up against Zest. Poland versus South Korea. What is your take here at the end of the day?
You know, like, call it European bias, but I'm feeling Elazer here. He's been playing really well. I mean, so has Zest, but Elazer definitely looked more untouchable so far in his previous match. He had the 3-0 win over another Protoss player in Nice, whereas Zest had the 3-1 victory over Stefano. I don't want to go as far as saying that Zest showed weakness, but, you know, he bled a little bit. He dropped that first map, and in my opinion, didn't look as convincing here as Elazer, who's just almost on another level over in Europe in terms of Zerg versus Protoss. He and Cheryl are just incredible.
They certainly are, and he has like a better win rate in this matchup than Zest has. But I do want to point out, again, like, Europe is very, very Zerg heavy. And Korea's kind of like more balanced between the 3 races. Would you agree with that? They don't get to play necessarily the same group of players day in, day out in their regular professional lives. It takes an event like this for them to hit each other.
And there's a bigger pool of top players as well over in South Korea, so that helps a lot. Players like Zest get a consistent practice against top players. But like I said, Elazer, his rise to the top, his rise to fame, really was off the back of, not entirely, but his Zerg versus Protoss, at which I think he's really, really good and keeps on evolving as well. It's not even just one style. He can mix in a lot of different build orders and strategies and play very differently from one game to another.
Yeah, and I really like that about Elazer. I think that he's very well suited to go up here against Zest. To be honest, looking at the way that these two match up, you know, 2 players that you and I have watched just so many games of, I just see this going the full series to game number 5. It feels almost impossible to see a shutout here, even though we saw a lot of shutouts yesterday.
Yeah, the games today definitely should be closer. Like with StarCraft, you know, it's never an exact science. We could have 4 3-0s, even though it's very unlikely. But yeah, 3-2 here definitely could be in the cards between these 2 guys. They kind of know what to expect out of one another. You know, they get to study each other, kind of while watching that, prepare themselves for what they think would be the best to try and counter the opponent, and that's where it all comes into play here and to fruition in this series that they're about to play against one another.
And this is a really cool thing about today as well, because we started yesterday, right, with a lot more players, and it was a seeded bracket. Here we are, top 8. We have the top 8 seeds actually all advancing, going up against each other. So these 2 much more closely ranked than the previous matches, and it should be a good one. Down here in the bottom left of our map, black-pink, it is our Polish Zerg player. It's Elazer. And in the top right, in the red, our Protoss player from South Korea, it's Zest.
And when we have a matchup like Zest against Elazer, I think the first thing that comes to mind to a lot of people that are familiar with these guys and with StarCraft 2 is seeing a normal game, you know, going to 3-4 bases with the standard build orders and all that. So my first question is going to be whether we might see something a little bit out of the ordinary. I think I heard Elazer mention somewhere that he had maybe something special a little bit planned for all Zest, or had a good idea of what to do. And in terms of actually what's standard, in case there's some viewers out there that don't necessarily know the matchup as well, out of a Protoss, usually a lot of the time you're going to see what we're seeing from Zest right now in the Nexus and the quick expansion, as we will see from the Zerg, but a Stargate opener is almost always in the cards. It's almost completely unconventional not to go for something like a Stargate opener, which we should be seeing Zest use a lot here in this series.
Yeah, and the Stargate, you know, you just produce some flying units out of it. You don't even need that many. Maybe an Oracle to try to harass their economy, kill off a couple drones. Maybe a Phoenix out there to push back some of the Zerg overlords so they can't really scout you, they can't really see what's going on.
And then that's where the mind game starts.
Exactly.
That's where you start on developing your builds into something that you think your opponent won't be able to see, or you hope, because there is obviously some options for Zergs from there to try and get a scout themselves. As we take a look here in the point of view of Elazer, those Zergs, they're some of the fastest players, and they have to be because of the inject with the Queen mechanic.
Absolutely.
So that's why sometimes it's going to be a little bit hard to follow here when we look at the Zerg's point of view.
Well, I tell you, StarCraft is the game where you actually need the most speed out of all video games. This is a fact. Normally we have pro gamers doing about 300 different actions every minute, just to put this into perspective. And the thing is, it's really needed, especially with Zerg, as you say. You have to manage a lot of different things at once as Zerg.
I feel like, yeah, some people might argue that, you know, there's some folks out there that play different games that be like, oh no, my game's really hard to
it comes
try
down
StarCraft
to your
high level.
Oh god, no, this is the most action-intensive, strategy-intensive video game out there, no doubt about that.
We have a different route being used here from Zest as opposed to the Stargate. He's opened with the Twilight Council and with the Robo, then into a Dark Shrine. So what he's going to do is drop down a bunch of gateways, fly a War Prism across the map, and warp in what usually is a couple Dark Templars, which is these invisible units that can be dangerous, but that usually the opponent will always be prepared for. So what do? You can morph the Dark Templars into Archons and do some, what a lot would say, safe harassment. Because as long as you micro it properly, you shouldn't be losing the War Prism and the Archons that are in it. I mean, you would have to really mess up. Like, what counters air from the Zerg early on in the game? Quints, and that's it.
No, you're very right about this. And this is actually an older strategy that Zest is using. This was very popular about a year ago, but StarCraft strategies kind of go in cycles. Everything gets popular for a bit, people get better and better at fighting it off, so you start changing your strategies. But one of the beautiful things about the game is suddenly you can go back to the strategy if it hasn't been used in a while. People are not as fresh against it. You know, maybe their strategies have changed, so now this strategy is better again. And the fact of the matter is, Zest has been a little bit playing the same strategies over and over. I want to say predictable in a way almost. He did a lot of the same things against Stefano yesterday, but here he is going for that very quick harassment play.
He just swapped in those DTs across the map. The Dark Templars are going to go and attack that tree. And this is what you were talking about. This is so uncommon nowadays that Elazer is just not ready for it. He's morphing an Overseer right now to try and detect those Dark Templars, but to him, they're invisible, so Zest not only gets the third base, which is a very big deal, he's also going to be able to evacuate here potentially, and he gets the pickup and leaves. Fantastic play here out of the Protoss player, who gets off an early lead.
And there's the detector. That was the Overseer that we just saw, and if he had that ready in time, then that would not have happened. Those Dark Templars would not have been able to kill anything.
And usually, I think if the Elazer had scouted this or expected it, he would have had a Spore Crawler, which also detects, so then he would have lost his third base. So now, losing that is a very big deal. As Zerg, you're supposed to open with 3 bases against a 2-base Protoss and be able to keep that alive. Build up your worker count, build up your economy, and then walk from there. But now, having lost that, Elazer has to remake it. His economy is in a much worse place than where it should be, and this might provoke a reaction from it. I see him only making units right now. He's not rebuilding economy. He might just go for full units and go for some sort of massive counter-attack. He's adding some Queens as well.
I think you're right about that. He's like forcing some Queens across the map. These move very slowly if they're not off creep, but they're quite tanky units. They can take a beating and keep on going. So it looks like he wants to do a very large attack here against Zest.
Yeah, Elazer feels like he's been backed into a corner there. The thing about opening Dark Templars as well into Archons is that you use a lot of your gas for it. So then you can't do a transition into something gas-heavy like Sentries or Stargate units, which will make it harder to fight against something like Roach Ravager, which is exactly what Elazer is counting on. Roach and Ravagers are very good against charge loads and Archons. But in this case, there is already an Immortal out for Zest. He's getting a second one. Looking at both armies, it's going to be very hard for Elazer to make this work, but he has no choice. He has to make this attack work here.
But look at this. The Queens get trapped over here. Some force fields being put down, and he is going to be able to kill off these Queens. That's going to be a huge victory for Zest.
Yeah, the Ravagers can break the force fields, and they do just that, but that took some time, and the Queens died first and foremost. Zerglings being rallied across the map. Does Elazer have enough?
Oh, some great micromanagement coming out from Zest. Look at him control these units, popping them into the Warp Prism and bringing them back out, keeping them alive, dodging all of these shots from Elazer.
And Zest is picking up these Immortals nicely here, microing as well as he can. It looks like he's going to be able to clean up, and usually if you're able to defend that one attack here, you're going to be so far ahead of the back of that. Remember, Elazer hasn't been building up his economy for this whole time. It looked scary for a second, but thanks to the Warp Prism micro and these Immortals, Zest is able to save all that and stabilize. But I think he's expecting Elazer to build up his economy from there. So that's why he's moving across the map. But Elazer is not. He keeps on massing units right now. That's all he's doing. He wants to take a fight here in a second.
All right, well, Elazer does have a lot of units here, but Zest coming in with quite a strong attack. A counterattack on that third base of Zest as well. In the meantime, right now we're seeing some control going down here, and it looks like Zest wants to attack the third base once again of Elazer.
Yeah, Zest is the one taking the fight to Elazer. He's that confident. He's looking at his army. He has way more and more powerful units. And he's just gonna crush through this army as Elazer is trying to kite away against these charge lots. If he fights head-on, he will lose everything. So he's trying to shoot and then pull back consistently to try and reduce this army count up until he has enough to overwhelm this Protoss army, but there's just too much, I think.
Yeah, you might be right about that. He does get to pick off some of Zest's units that get a little bit out of position, but Zest pulling everything back together again. Oh my, a lot of Zerglings running past the defenses of Zest here. They did clean up his third base and are doing some damage there in his second base.
What a scrappy game. What a slugfest between these two here. Elazer doing one of the only things that maybe could bring him back into this game here on his side of the map. Is still in trouble, trying to hold on here. Those units are running very low on hit points. He's trying to regroup with whatever he can, but the Warp is in micro again gonna come into play here from Zest, who's very much on point here with this. And I think now he's defended back at home. And with that, that might just be it here.
Yeah.
Re-killing that third base is going to be a very big deal.
The amount of times he's killed that is so significant. You know, you might look at this and say, oh, well, they both killed each other's third base, but it's a big deal in this matchup. Zerg needs one more base than Protoss to really fight on an even keel.
These Immortals had so many kills. Like, they've been carrying that game here from Zest by themselves, pretty much.
Yeah, those are some true heroes there, no doubt about it. A lot of damage dealt to Elazer here. But, you know, Zest is... he only has his two bases. He's going to back up a little bit and take it a bit slower.
Look at that APM in his hand, man. There is not one other game where I've seen somebody play this fast with their hands.
That is it, my friend. StarCraft.
Elazer, I mean, from there, what is he supposed to do? Like, it feels like an impossible choice. Do you try and rebuild your economy from scratch against somebody who's just so far ahead? Or do you just make units and try and somehow provoke a mistake from the opponent? That must be one of the only way that you can come back in this kind of game. And I think he's going to do that. He's going to keep on making units, go for the kind of desperate-looking production, and then go for an attack. And really hope that maybe if Zest really botches the fight, he can lose, but it keeps on getting better and better here for Zest right now, the situation in this game.
It certainly does. Now, this is a scary army coming up, but some great force fields coming down. Those Ravagers will deal with those force fields, but they keep coming down from Zest. Zest just controlling his army so beautifully, pulling back units under attack and dealing so much damage. And that is it. GG is called. Zest will pick up that first game. And I gotta say, that was really beautifully done by Zest. The fact that he pulled out an older strategy. You know, Elazer was saying he had some things prepared for Zest. He thought he knew some good ways to knock Zest off his high horse. But if you are trying to play against a player and they change what they're doing, that can backfire. And we saw that there with the Dark Templars sniping his third base.
And he shook his head here for a little bit. Even before he had an opportunity to do what he wanted, Zest already took the fight to him and put him in a really difficult spot by killing his third base, which again, you can't afford to lose as a Zerg player. So now Elazer, like, it's hard to start a series like this because you're definitely going to look at it and be like, oh, okay, well, that didn't go according to plan. Usually, pro gamers are very critical as well. You know, a lot of the time, they basically start telling themselves, oh, I played really bad there, or that's even what they would say in interviews. Whereas for us, watching, it's like, oh, well, it just went bad. You stay positive and all that. But as you're playing here,
it's hard not to get down on yourself. This is your full-time profession. You are supposed to beat your opponent. This is how you're going to make money. But that game, just everything kind of went wrong for him. And I don't think he played poorly. Zest caught him off guard with a different type of strategy, and then he controlled his units so beautifully. Just the way he was utilizing that Warp Prism, popping his units in and out, casting his spells like those force fields to block units back. I mean, it was really wonderful control from Zest.
Remember, we see everything, but these guys, they only see what's around their own units. And in this case, they read the game so well. The escape with the Dark Templars by Zest was beautiful. If he had tried to run on the ground, if he had gone anywhere else than where he went, he might have lost those Dark Templars, and then he would have been in big trouble. But no, he went to the top right corner of where the Zerg units were coming, and he knew, without seeing, he knew that detection was on his way with an Overseer. He loaded up just on time, escaped away from the Queens with the Warp Prism not dying. And I mean, if you're able to not only kill the third hatchery, but escape with the 4 Dark Templars, you're pretty happy.
Utilizing that terrain was part of why you won the game. He would have died otherwise. Like, Elazer's attack would have killed him without those extra units. All right, going into game number 2 now. Looks like our next map is going to be Catalyst. Down here in the bottom right, our Polish Zerg losing that first map. It's Elazer. And in the top left, our Korean Protoss showcasing some brilliant strategies. It is Zest.
I have to say, Elazer, historically, what he struggled a little bit more against Protoss at times is the very aggressive play. It's very rare that you see him go up against a Protoss, just kind of sitting back, playing full standard. And I think maybe that's what Zest picked up on by studying Elazer. He was like, you know what, if I just play Stargate standard normal, this guy is just too good. So I'm going to catch him off guard from game number 1 with the Dark Templar opener. And this builds a very interesting dynamic now where Elazer almost has to go the extra mile to scout early on to make sure he knows what he's up against, because Zest in game number 1 caught him by surprise. So Elazer has to keep on wondering for the rest of this series, in every single map, how Zest is going to be opening.
It's part of the mind games. You can really set up a series well. In a best of 5, that's a lot of games to go through. And you can kind of dictate the pace of your opponent's thoughts by doing something different like this and making Elazer think about that. And the thing is, like, what if you play too safe in StarCraft, that's almost as bad as playing like too greedily, right? If having too much defense and not enough defense are very similar things in StarCraft. You really have to kind of skirt the line, figure out what your opponent is doing, and react appropriately.
Yeah, and usually information through aggression, a lot of the time, despite, except for the early game scouting, is the way to go. And we see Zest. Apparently, he's the one who has stuff planned here in this series for Elazer. Now proxying a pylon out on the map. So he's basically going to hide something away completely here from Elazer again in game number 2. And that's going to be a Stargate. So whatever he makes out of this, and usually it's oracles whenever that's being proxied, he's going to get to Elazer's base maybe slightly quicker. And by making it there, unless Elazer was to somehow have some crazy sixth sense and scout it, he makes sure that Elazer will get completely surprised and caught off guard by this. Last game, you went for Dark Templars, against which you need Spores. Against Stargate, you also need Spores to counter that, but now it will arrive so fast that if Elazer, even for 1 second, thinks that this could be Dark Templars, he will get the Spores too late.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Another thing I want to point out, like making the Stargate outside of his base, Elazer might think about that last game, and he could send an Overlord into Zest's base to look for something, but it won't be there. He won't find what he's looking for at all. And in fact, where Zest made it is far enough away from Elazer that he doesn't expect anything to be up there. See, this Overlord, this is almost a sacrifice, because if anything was making that could hit air, it will just die. But flying through this base, he is not going to actually find anything. But sometimes the lack of finding something is similar to finding something. You know something's out there.
But in this case, it's going to come so fast. The Oracle is already complete. That's the first one. I see a Spore going up, but that's going to be only one of the bases of Elazer covered with this. That's the main base where the Oracle is going to be flying. That could be very fortunate for him. If he sees the first one, then you know there's the possibility for a second one, and you get really ready for that.
He's going to be able to move his queens into position a bit quicker, but the Spore is not done yet. 2 drones die, 3 go down, and that's a reasonable first pass for an Oracle.
Like when I first saw where the Stargate went down and I saw it wasn't scouted, I was like, okay, disaster. But
Yeah.
3 drones is actually not the end of the world right now for Elazer. And knowing, oh my god, what?
He flies the Oracle over the Queens and loses
How
it.
did that happen?
This is a pretty big deal, actually. The Oracle costs a lot of money early in the game, and to lose one like that?
A very unconventional mistake by Zest here, but I guess because he flew an Oracle inside of the main base of Elazer, he thought that there could not be Queens in that location. Like the Queens, they were not protecting the middle line. They were out on map shredding creep, so I guess he's just sent it through there knowing that thinking there shouldn't be anything, but guess what? There was something, and now he loses a very important unit early on.
Yeah, mind games upon mind games here. He's trying to fly around right now with that second Oracle. We'll see if he can get some damage done at this third base. Trying to throw down a Stasis Ward to freeze some of these units.
Oh,
he gets a
goes
Queen
up
too.
just before dying.
Yeah. Not too bad, so he's continuing. That just freezes him for a little bit. It's not the biggest deal, but it's a little bit of harassment. StarCraft is a game oftentimes of little advantages. You gain a lot of little advantages over time, and that turns into a big advantage.
When ahead.
Get more ahead.
Words to live by. I like the transition out of Zest here, actually. He goes into a lot of gateways and Charge and the Templar Archive. So he's going to go into Charge Loss and Archons, which synergize with one another very well. Also, economically, it makes sense because the Archons cost a lot of gas and the extra minerals can be spent in Charge Loss. It looks like even though he might be starting a third Nexus in a second, he's investing a lot into the potential attack there because he made so many gateways. So he's going to be going for a huge attack here in a moment.
Now, this is actually the way Zest normally plays, like opening up with an Oracle for some harassment, going into some charge, getting the Archons as well. And there you go. You see he's already getting those Archons morphed.
This might really catch Elazer off guard. I don't think he's seen this coming. He's getting drones right now. He needs to get only units to defend against this. Look at the army supply.
Yeah, he has a few roaches, but not really.
Yeah.
I mean,
okay, he's got Queens, I guess.
Yeah, he's got actually quite a few roaches and Queens right there. So Zest will have to pick up, and he's going to have to pull back and play like a more standard game. He's going to have to defend some. When you see this many roaches early on, you're not going to get a lot of damage done normally with this Archon harassment.
Yeah, Elazer made just enough roaches that made him very safe against this. You need to still be very careful against the Warp Prism. He's just so mobile, and remember, Zealots can be warped in across the map very fast and they start attacking. If you just for 1 second out of position and you start taking damage, it can be a disaster. Elazer, as of late, he's been very good with Hydralisks and Lurkers as well. So now for him to go for a Lurker, then I feel like that's the way he wants to play here in this matchup. With some Lurkers, set up some siege somewhere, be aggressive, and really take it to more of a mid-game. I feel like Elazer shines the most in the mid-game.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you on that. He doesn't really come off as a late-game player, but his mid-game is fantastic. You know, in that kind of like difficult area before you have all your units. He's very good at making a medium amount of units work well for him. But we see this little kind of mini game going on. Zest flying around with these Archons, getting any damage he can. See, getting the creep back, getting rid of some creep tumors. And he's watching the roaches, where the roaches are moving. He keeps using his Phoenix, which can't even do damage to them, but just chasing them around so he sees where they are. That's important, because if they just arrive at his base and he didn't know, suddenly a lot of damage can happen.
And Zest is now going to Storm as he's adding Immortals. This is a very solid army to deal with the ground army of a Zerg player. Only Lurkers can be scary against this kind of army. Almost anything else is, unless there is an early timing of Hydra Link Bane that hits, you're not that worried, especially as you reach Storm later on. So I always say this, the Lurkers really the X factor in the matchup right now. They can kind of make magic happen here and there, but against the top Protoss like Zest, it's always so hard to set up a siege because they're good at delaying it and then taking the full-on engagement that they need, especially when an Oracle is already out and he's going to basically keep on tagging the Zerg army. And that's hard for Elazer to deal with, so I wonder if Elazer might kind of revert back into playing a longer game because of that, or if he actually commits to an attack. Usually, he almost always commits to a big attack right about now, like very soon.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. We see him continually making units. Some Lurkers are being morphed at the moment. He's moving some roaches around the map as well, maybe to poke a bit. But the Elazer army is scary, but the one thing he really has to watch out for here from Zest is that Warp Prism that we've seen flying around. If he moves his entire army across the map and suddenly Zest attacks with a little counterattack with the Warp Prism, then a lot of damage can be dealt.
Yeah, all alike though, Zest, I think he was about ready to move out to delay some sort of lurker siege, because right now he knows that no attack has happened yet, and he knows that Elazer will be moving across the map. Now, Elazer uses this pack of roaches on the right-hand side, of this intrusion on roaches.
Yeah.
To set up on the left-hand side for the potential huge siege that he wants to go into.
Yeah, I really like this, because you want to meet the lurkers out on the map. You want to slow them down from moving forward, but the roaches get him into a defensive spot, and suddenly Elazer has units on 3 sides.
Yeah, he's going to attack from every single side and hope that on one of them, Zest is not ready. But Zest is ready everywhere right now. Even though that lurker on the right-hand side is going to burrow, gets tagged just right on time. Force fields are available on the left-hand side, even though on the right side, it might be harder for Zest to defend. On the left-hand side, he's going to do such a good job that he could just run there right after and then maybe potentially clean up.
Zest doing a great job on all fronts. His Immortals dealing a lot of damage to that army. Over on this side, of course, all of his spellcasters, force fields going down, Psy Storms going down, just shredding through all of these Zerg units.
Elazer is losing so much and so fast, even though he's traded somewhere in there. He's running out of units, and across the map there was the War Prism at the bottom left doing some harassment as well. The lurkers are going to set up around the wall at the natural, but Zest has so much left over that he might be able to engage very soon here against this. And I mean, only one of the gateways is even being threatened right now.
Look at these lurkers, though, dealing some damage right there. Zest having a little bit of a hard time engaging that. He has cleaned up all the attacks on the right-hand side near his third base, but now it's time for that War Prism we were talking about earlier.
Yeah, this has to work, and it has to work right now here for Elazer. He can't take his time. He needs to siege a little bit quicker across the map. He's going to be assaulted by these Zealots. It's going to make it very hard for him. He's just going to have to use the reinforcements to try and defend. Zest finally engages into the lurkers. That might have been a little bit early here, doing a good job of pulling back the Immortals.
Yeah, quite a few units still left over here. The Zealots do kill the base, so that is really the danger of these lurker pushes. You don't have many units at home. Zest dealing a lot of counter damage, but this push still does exist for Elazer. He has a few lurkers here that are hard to clean up with Zealots.
And look at the army supply. Artosi 74 to 27. Elazer got such good trades. The counterattack was brilliant by Zest, but that got defended eventually. And now Zest, it's so hard for him to actually engage into these lurkers and defend against them because they do so much area of effect damage to anything in a straight line across from them, and they're being escorted by Hydralisk and Lynx in that position. Elazer just has so much more.
Oh, this is a beautiful push by Elazer. Look at that, the Hydralisk trying to keep those lurkers alive as long as possible, dealing massive damage. GG is called, and Elazer wins game number 2. That was a fantastic game from both sides, though.
And that is exactly where I expect Elazer to shine the most. In these moments where he's on 3-4 bases, goes into Hydralisk, goes into lurkers, and sets up this kind of siege. That was so beautifully done. On the right-hand side, buying some time with the roaches, sending everything on the left-hand side and attacking from multiple angles. And if I look at the way Zest defended this, I'm almost like, what could he have done better? Like, he landed force fields, he stormed properly. Maybe he re-engaged a little bit too quick against the lurkers, but it's a very hard choice to make because if you just sit there and wait to have more, that means the opponent will have more as well. And then builds up a crazy amount of lurkers that you then can't engage even more so than earlier on.
It's really hard to engage into lurkers. If your opponent has a bunch of lurkers burrowed with units on top of them to defend, it's really difficult at that point to get in there, get the damage done. The lurkers just deal massive amounts of damage, but I agree with you. It seemed at first like Zest was just defending perfectly, but Elazer's attack was too strong. Even after he lost that fourth base, he had enough units to punch through.
I think maybe a couple shield batteries were missing on that third base for Zest. That could have helped a lot, and maybe a better split on the High Templars and the Immortals. Just make it really 50-50, right? Because he was meeting similar armies on both sides. I think on the right-hand side he was lacking High Templars, but obviously we see the entire map. You know, like this is we're not playing StarCraft over there. We're observing StarCraft, which is very different. These guys, they have a limited vision. It's just so hard to react properly to this kind of play. That's why Elazer loves to do this kind of attack, because he's relying on that.
And to be honest, few Zergs in the world are capable of hitting a three-pronged attack that well. And I mean, the thing is, I look at how Zest defended, I'm like, well, that's a better defense than most Protosses would put up against us, and he still loses here. So definitely Elazer showing a lot of strength this game.
And now Zest has to wonder if the game goes into this mid-game and he hasn't done any serious damage earlier on in the game. Is it always going to go down like this? How do you look at last game and properly come out with what you could have done better. It's very difficult.
It's a good question, Todd, and Zest is going to have to answer it here as we go into game number 3. Our map is going to be Neon Violet Squared. Good luck, says Zest to his opponent in the bottom right. Our Polish Zerg, Elazer. And of course, in the top left, our red Protoss player from Korea, Zest.
Looking for a title here. 2018, I'm sure he would love to win that title.
Oh,
over in his
yes.
home country.
Well, this is a big tournament, and last year he didn't win any. Normally he wins them all the time. What do you make here, Todd, of actually how Elazer is playing?
Going for the gold base here, it's actually almost typical of Elazer. For a long time, any map that has a gold base, he almost always went for it, and he got a lot of practice with it. I think he really understands the mechanic behind gold minerals, which for those of you not familiar with it, you actually get more minerals every time you mine. So these bases, they give you a bigger boost in terms of economy earlier on, but they also mine out quicker.
Yes.
Which, the thing about them is that they're also always in a position where they are not that close to your natural and main base, making them harder to defend. But if you can get away with it, it's a great tool to have at your disposal.
Yeah, and generally speaking, gold bases most favor Zerg. And they're generally speaking, again, most powerful against Protoss. But Protoss has a lot of ways to try to attack this, because as you said, it's far away from your base. Look how long of a walk that is, actually, to get to this gold base from the main base. So can you defend all of these locations easily? It's pretty difficult, which allows Protoss to try to harass it.
And you can be sure one thing is that Zest has played against this before on the ladder, and has trained against it. He actually was very thorough with his scouting. He checked everywhere for that second hatchery from Elazer, couldn't find it. Checked near his own base for a proxy, was a little bit scared for a second, and then he was like, okay, no, it's just across the map, you've taken the gold base, that's fine. And he's already thinking about a plan right now, probably figured out what exactly he was going to do, here to try and counter this. Here's that income boost that talked about, as Elazer will be saturating that base. Now the question is, those Elazer, I mean, it goes for both players, right? How passive to aggressive do they play? Because they both have the choice to either play really aggressive or really passive, which applies when a gold base is involved.
Yeah, and I think it's, from the Protoss side, the general consensus is you should make lots of adepts and lots of oracles against this. You should try to get in there and kill off as many drones as you can.
Because they got the mobility. They can jump from one base to another quicker than a Zerg will be able to react with their basic units, which is... If it's just Zerglings, sure, they're fast, but they die very quick to Adepts. You could add Banelings, but then do you really have the economy and the gas to make enough to defend against Adepts? So Zest, he could take a very safe third base and very quick one, because he knows that Elazer open with the gold base.
This is interesting to me that he went for a Phoenix first here. You see that Elazer is trying to scout as much as he can with this Overlord, but Zest will deny that, which means that Elazer's going to be playing a little bit in the dark. He doesn't really know. Is Zest going to go completely ham at this point? Is he going to go all in?
And looking at Elazer's vision right now, that was his only scout across the map. That's it. He has nothing else. No other Overlords across the map. He could run around with Zerglings, but Protoss always has a wall off against Zerg to prevent those guys from getting in. So maybe getting a little bit paranoid. He's going to have to cover all of his bases, literally. Like, he goes for Roach Warren. He goes for Spores. He's getting Lynx right now to make sure he doesn't get caught off guard. And look at Zest. He starts a third base and a Robo. Looks like he's going to take the passive / economy approach.
Yeah, that's very interesting to see. But on a map like Blackpink, that third base that he's taking, it's not like Elazer's going to be able to attack him. Even though Elazer is going to be able to get his units out more quickly due to that gold base, it's going to be very difficult for him to break through anything. So Zest is kind of killed off the Overlord quickly, made Elazer paranoid, and then not done much to make the paranoia work out for him.
That Phoenix almost died. Zest is, right now, when I looked at the walker count, by the way, he was quite a bit ahead. He's almost, with killing those drones, he's going to pull even further ahead. He's used the fact that Elazer opened with a gold base to his advantage. Look at the walker count. 30 walkers to 44. Now Elazer almost has to go for an attack once again, like we saw in game number 1, which didn't work out at all. He's massing roaches. He's getting the glial reconstitution, which will make the roaches much faster, and he's only making units. I think he's just going to try to go for a big bust here as we see those queens moving across the map.
It definitely looks like that. And the thing is, the queens are going to be very crucial, but he has to wait for them because these oracles will kill everything. The queens are the only thing that hit air here.
It's been fully spotted, by the way. There's Zest flying above this. It's almost like saying, I'm ready to receive you, all right? Like, come across the map, I'm waiting for you.
Look at all the defensive structures right now. He's making a lot of shield batteries. He's getting these sentries up to kind of block the movement of all the units. I can't imagine Elazer breaking through here.
Yeah, he's gonna need perfect corrosive bites here. Break out this force field. He jumps on top of the Immortal. Zest wasn't looking for 1 second. Those land a couple good force fields, but the shield battery is going to help first and foremost. Those queens need to go to work on his oracles.
Yeah, they are hitting one of the oracles. He does pull it back at the last second here. More units being warped in by Zest. A great force field goes down, forcing a lot of units back. Those shield batteries healing all the Protoss units so magnificently, but this is a lot of units from Elazer.
Yeah, the shield battery is putting in the overtime here. So many of them and using all of their energy. Another Immortal is on the way out of that Robo. Zest only has 1 Immortal and 1 Sentry attacking right now. If these buildings start being unpowered, oh my god, the Robo gets unpowered. Could Elazer actually do this?
Oh, he definitely could. The probes are going to have to come out and fight now. He pulls those probes off the mineral line. Oh, some great corrosive biles landing right now, doing extra damage here to the Immortal. The Phoenix even comes back to try to help out, but the Queen's picking it off.
Yeah, the fact that the Robo wasn't powered means no more Immortals are going to come out anytime soon as the Robo gets sniped as well. Stalkers are now going to be warped in. Elazer has done so much damage. He kills 16 probes, so his economy is actually now ahead. He could go back into workers, but he's still trying to break through. Still sending units across the map to try and break Zest and take the 2-1 lead.
Zest is trying so hard to hold on at this point. His Immortal dealing huge amounts of damage throughout the battle. More units being warped in on the left and the right. But Elazer just continues to force his way through.
Triple the army supply now for the Polish Zerg player. I think he's done it. He's spreading creep inside of Zest's base. Zest just running out of units. He's scrambling to try and stay alive, warping in Zealots now. And those shield batteries, they're just sitting there. They have no energy to even help.
This is just an awesome play from Elazer, showing off the power of a gold base, gaining those minerals so quickly. GG. What an amazing, overwhelming army. There's no other way to do an attack like that if you didn't take a fast gold base.
I think I saw a bit of a cheeky smile here from Elazer, and I wouldn't blame him for it. That was amazing. Here I was thinking that Zest fully had outsmarted Elazer, but he was the other way around, Artosis.
I guess so. You know, I like how Zest tried to approach that. Normally, Protoss players play very aggressively, and Elazer was preparing for that. But when he saw that he says, okay, I'll just attack you then. And it ends up working out magnificently. Zest just wasn't ready. If that attack was even, I want to say 30 seconds later, probably it gets held. So great moves by Elazer with that killer instinct. We're going to go to a quick commercial break, and when we come back, game number 4.